Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining me for our 2025 Stock Pitch Prep Night. I'm being joined by Laura Garrett, YIS board member, as well as Ro Michaels, Lee Mackey, and then I also have Diana Myers and Maria Miles joining us this evening. So super excited to have you here, especially for those of you who are first-time Stock Pitch participants. This definitely is something that you should attend. We're going to give you tips and tricks on what judges are looking for the stock pitch reports and presentations, and be able to kind of guide you through the whole process. So let's go ahead and get started. Hang on 1 second, I still have students trickling in. All right, now we're good. Now hopefully we'll get started. All right, so we'll be focusing on the following items this evening. We have our stock pitch event timeline, our report, presentation, submission guidelines, judging criteria, YIS event overview. We're going to give some advice, suggestions, and tips, and then we're going to end it with a Q&A from the students. So just want to go over the stock pitch competition timeline. We opened registration on February 26th, and that registration is open until April 2nd. And that's on the My YIS calendar. So if you haven't registered for Stock Pitch, please do so. The registration closes April 2nd, and that's when all of your Stock Pitch reports, presentation, and YouTube video submissions are due. I've been asked the question, can you choose which one to do? No, you have to do all three. If you don't do all three, your submission is actually not going to be judged. So make sure you complete all of the items for review. April 7th to the 16th, judges are going to review all submissions. April 18th, we're going to announce the top 100 teams. The top 100 teams from all of the events will be invited to participate in the Global Youth Investment Summit in New York City. April 18th through May 27th, you're going to make your travel arrangements to get to New York City if you're one of those top 100 teams. We're going to have a Bloomberg and JP Morgan networking session on May 28th in the evening, and then May 29th and 30th is our Global Youth Investment Summit. Let me pause here, and I will make sure everyone is in, because we have a few students who are continuing. All right. So the stock pitch written report guidelines, reminder, all of these are on our website. So please, please, please go to YIS.org, go to programs, and go to stock pitch report. Please read all of the report guidelines. It is very, very critical that you enter your submission correctly. So just as far as the guideline goes, make sure you include your name on the first page. That's you and your teammate. I need name, first name, last name, school, state, or country if you're an international student. And I need that information for each team member, meaning both of you. Email addresses, make sure you have that in there. The company name, exchange or ticker symbol, sector, industry, and then new for this year, we would like you to find the investor relations contact person for the stock that you're pitching for the company. Usually that information is available on their website, usually under any of the kind of organizational structure of their website. You should be able to find who the investor relations contact person is and an email for that person as well. We'd like to be able to contact them in case you do make the top 100, to be able to share your report with them. And we think that would be a great way to get them kind of involved in Young Investor Society as well. You're going to do your recommendation. It's either buy, sell, or hold, the current price, and your target price. Make sure that all of the information is publicly available that you're using. Be the original work of the student, meaning do not let AI complete your stock pitch report. We will flag it and it will not be reviewed. Be prepared, do the preparation from a perspective of an independent research analyst. So we strongly encourage you to use the stock pitch report template provided on the website for your report. Of course, you can modify this, you can alter it, but just kind of stick to the same basic requirements. So submission guidelines, make sure that your stock pitch report, your PowerPoint presentation, and your YouTube video link are in one email. Very, very critical. One email with all those items. One submission per team or individual. Please save your stock pitch report file as a PDF. Google Slides doesn't convert properly, so don't give me a Google slide. Make sure it's in PDF from your files. The next thing, make sure you don't set up any permissions to view. The judges will not view them if it has permissions set, so do not set any permissions to review your documents. You want to save your stock pitch presentation as a PowerPoint file, and you want to list it as presentation in the file so that we can tell the difference between which one's your stock pitch report and which one's your presentation. Your YouTube video link, make sure that it doesn't have permissions set. We need to view it from April 2nd to May 31st, so it's just easier if it's just kind of publicly available. Any video that cannot be reviewed with the link will be disqualified, unfortunately. So make sure you send all of those things in one email, your stock pitch report, your stock pitch presentation, and the YouTube link. And remember, all of these items are due by midnight on April 2nd. Now, don't email me when is midnight on April 2nd. It's in your time zone. So whatever your time zone is, midnight in your time zone, it has to be in by April 2nd. All right, that's not April 3rd, it's 2nd. Judging criteria, here's kind of an overview of what this looks like. So each stock pitch will be judged into the following categories. Investment idea is 50 points, presentation is 25 points, and the YouTube video is 25 points as well. So I'm going to kick it off to Maria Miles to give you a little bit of an overview on our Global Youth Investment Summit. And this is going to be for the top 100 teams that are invited to compete in the stock pitch.
Thank you. So I see a few faces I recognize, so I know some of you were there last year and are familiar with this, but if you're new, so if you go through everything Christine just said, and you are in the top 100 teams, you'll qualify to come to the Global Youth Investment Summit and compete again in potentially 3 rounds. The first day we'll have the first round of all of the teams. Then on the second day, we will go down to 24 teams. And at the end of that day, we will have the finals with the top 5 or 6 teams. But if you want to make sure that you can come to the Global Youth Investment Summit and you're either not sure that you're going to qualify in one of those top 100 teams, or you just know that you want to be there either way, you can register right now. And there will be events for you to attend either way. So if you do qualify for the stock pitch, then you'll go through that competition and you'll do other events when available. But if you don't qualify, then you'll be able to attend workshops, personal finance game, case study competition, networking sessions. So there'll be really full days, whether or not you're doing the stock pitch competition. That's just one element of GYIS. Registration is going to be open, that open registration for any student until the end of March. We're going to close it on March 31st. And then at that point, you have to be one of those top 100 teams. So if you want to guarantee your attendance, now is the time to register. And all of the details on how to register, they've been in the monthly newsletters, but they're also on the website. If you go to YIS.org, There's a tab for programs, and under that is a tab for Global Youth Investment Summit. And under there, you can find kind of a high-level schedule of events. You can find the information for registering. Anything you need should be there. If there's something you can't find, you can always email me. It's my first and last name, mariamiles@yis.org. And I think that's about it. But the days will be really full of fun, interesting things. And we already have, I think we're up to 80 kids registered. Plus we'll have everybody that qualifies through the stock pitch. So we're hoping to get to about 300 students. And we look forward to seeing many, if not all of you there.
Perfect. Thanks so much, Maria. It was super exciting. I wanted to just hand this off to our stock pitch judges. Previously, they judged our online competitions, they judged our in-person events, so they're super knowledgeable. I have Lee Mackey, who is a YIS board member, along with Laura Garrett and Ro Michaels. Let's go ahead and start with Lee.
Hey guys, this is a pleasure to address you all, and I'm so excited for this year's competition. Last year's was incredible. I saw some familiar faces just scrolling through who's online, and I saw Zach and some others, and it's going to be awesome to have you back. So with respect to the stock pitch competition and what the judges are looking for, it's critical that you keep in mind you're not on Shark Tank. We love Shark Tank. They're friends of YIS. But you don't necessarily need to dress up in a costume and have a real gimmick. That's not this. This is a stock pitch. You're explaining why the company in question you should buy, sell, or hold, and then you're showing why that stock price is a value or why it's overvalued or et cetera. Too often we see people get excited about Tesla just because it's a low-hanging fruit, and they want to pitch Tesla, and they fall in love with explaining the company, and they never quite get in their time allotted to explaining why the stock price of Tesla is currently a good buy, for example, or that it's going to fall further, or whatever your argument is. So when you're thinking about your stock pitch, remember you're pitching a stock. So as you proceed through your report and your information, you do have to give a company profile and talk a little bit about their management. And some of those things we'll already know because we see them in the media every day. And if it's a more obscure company, you'll be teaching us and we'll be learning who they are as you share it. And the thing to remember is that if you never get to your financials, the people you're pitching to usually have some experience in hearing pitches like this. So they're going to want to hear about the financials and about the different valuation methods you're using. So anyways, as you work through this, always keep in the back of your mind, you're pitching why this is a great stock. You do have to know the company and you do have to be able to explain it. But keep that in the back of your mind and it'll really make you stand out from the crowd because we see so many people that that just forget that point. So I'll stop there and then let's give the other judges a chance to comment, and happy to share any additional thoughts as we move on.
Perfect. Thanks. Laura.
Yeah. Hi, everyone. Welcome. We're so excited to hear your pitches this year. I know there are a lot of familiar faces out there, but I'm always this is my favorite part of the year when everyone's doing their stock pitch. And I, wish you all the best of luck. I'm actually just going to follow up on what Lee had said and not rehash things too much, but I agree with Lee. One of the things we see a lot is like a very long explanation of the company, maybe too granular. I think I think Warren Buffett always says this, make sure you can explain your company to, a child. So make it clear, concise. This is how I would recommend the flow. This is what the company does. This is how they make money. This is who they compete against, and this is their competitive advantage against those companies, and then flow right into this is how they grow. This is why I don't think they won't grow, or this is what their cash flow and earnings will be. Go flow that right into your financial model. And I think that helps a lot, but just make sure you understand your business and can explain it really simply. And that's, oh, and maybe since this is the first year with investor relations for all of you guys, as someone who's had lots of experience with investor relations through the year, you might also look on LinkedIn. Sometimes it's just luck of the draw with the company. They won't respond to you. Sometimes they'll respond in 2 seconds and you're not ready for it yet. Sometimes they're going to say to you, we can't talk about the quarter right now. It's like a blackout period. Just say, I don't have any interest in talking about the quarter. I want to learn about your business. And then sweet talk them, make sure that they know, you know, I'm part of YIS. I'm a student. You're really going to help me out. You're a mentor. So anyway, just, it's great though to talk to companies. They will absolutely love talking to you. They'll like it far more than talking to me. So, anyway, that's kind of all I have, and I wish you all the best of luck.
Perfect. Thanks, Laura. Ro.
Hey, well, thanks, guys. And I love your presentations. I've gotten some of my best ideas in the last 5 years from these stock competitions. I'm going to focus on just, I'm reiterating what has been said previously, but I'm going to focus on what I think is most important and what most often I find missing, which are similar. You've got just a little bit of time and you've always got a little bit of mind share. I personally would not spend any time on the history of the company, particularly if it's well known. Things like Costco or Tesla, I don't want to hear any of it. And I can't think of a situation where I probably don't know the company really well anyway. And stay away from anything that's conventional wisdom. Market inefficiency is about what the market doesn't see that goes into the fundamentals of the company and is important. So it's material information that is non-public in the sense that nobody else has figured it out, but it's based on public information. So the most important thing to me is we're calling it the price target, but really it's the intrinsic value of the company. And I really reward people, over reward people that pick 2 or 3 different ways of saying, this is what I think the company's worth vis-a-vis what the price of the company is now. Therefore, it's undervalued or overvalued. And I would say, you know, you can use DCF, but everybody knows there's real weaknesses in DCF, and you should kind of explain that a little bit when you get into a company that's not even profitable yet. And then you can use relative valuation. Here's what other companies in this space are trading at, but knowing that in the dot-com years, every dot-com just about was trading at way above what the DCF was. So you know, kind of reconcile and triangulate those different ways of valuing a company. Coming up with your own model is really, really hard. You can use AI for it, but some kind of your own model. And I would say, you know, whereas the market predicts this company will grow at 3%, we think it's going to be 3.5% or something like that, or the margins are going to grow even greater than what the market thinks. That's hard to do, but that's what investment analysis is all about. I would also say that I know these companies well, but I try and blank out everything I know about them and focus just on your rationale for what the company is. Another thing is be very consistent with your rating. And this gets a little bit difficult because of the time of when you first do the report. And I ran into this all the time on Wall Street, you know, where you'd say, well, okay, I'm going to submit the report in April, but I'm not presenting it until June. Well, what happens if the stock went up 50%? I don't know what YIS's personal view of this is, but I would switch the rating from the time you write it to the time and not try and, you know, change the analysis and kind of get this creep of, well, it's worth even more now. Look at how much it's flying. Technical analysis. Oh, by the way, I'm not a big fan of technical analysis, but that's just my own bias. I stick to fundamentals. I would also love to see, I really respect somebody who does more a short, just says, hey, this company is overvalued and here's why. It's just unique and it requires some special skills, and it's just as important as finding a company that's a buy that in terms of your skill development. I've got a lot of other points, but I'll put it back to you, Christine, and maybe it'll come up. Hey.
Sure, no problem. So I have a few of our students who are on the call that I'd love to be able to get kind of their insight on the competition, what they kind of experienced, and anything that they can provide for are the new students in the competition. So I'm going to call on Isaac.
Hi, thank you guys for letting me speak at this meeting. I just have a few tips, just building off of the judges' points. Um, a key point that I noticed from when I presented last year, is that specifically for the slides, less is more. You're gonna have a limited amount of time to present each slide, and if you stack information on the slide itself, even if it's a couple of concise bullet points, diagrams are much more effective. You really want to be saying the key points. And just building off of that, you do want to make sure that you're not just using sort of like the default Google Slides template. You can search on LinkedIn. There's these really professional like stock pitch slide templates that you can replicate on PowerPoint. And obviously, as Ms. Tobin mentioned, each stock pitch has its required structure. There's the competitive analysis, there's the valuation, etc. You do want to make those well-reasoned and logically connected. Otherwise, you're not going to be able to stand out against sort of the rest of the competition. Another key point, as Mr. Rowe mentioned, is that his personal bias was sort of that the fundamentals he stuck to were more important than the financial modeling, and I couldn't agree more because that's sort of what a lot of the judges stood by last year as well. Because like the DCF models are all based on like future cash flows, we just sort of have to predict based on your own logic. But the story, the sort of business model, the revenue model, the catalysts, those are sort of like the heart and the foundation of the company. So you do want to emphasize those in your presentation. And sort of my last tip would be that once you've finally selected your company, you want to go in sort of like a deep rabbit hole, and this just builds on to like explaining your company to a 5-year-old. You want to go into like past earnings calls, past company news, etc. Just make sure that you fall in love with your company and you know every single bit about it.
Great, thanks so much, Isaac. I want to go ahead and call on our winner of our stock pitch competition last year, who is Zach.
Hi. Yeah, thank you for having me on the call. Isaac kind of took a lot of the words I was gonna say out of my mouth. So, I would, yeah, agree with almost everything Isaac just said. But yeah, I mean, in my opinion, what helped me, I think, succeed last year is really just simplify the process. Just know your company inside and out. Don't have a script. Try not to have a script. Try not to just be reading your slideshow when you're doing your presentation, but try to just know your company. Isaac said it, like fall in love with your company, listen to the earnings call. Again, I don't want to just repeat what he said, but yeah, if you put 110% in right now, stay up late, really crafting a good written report, a good presentation, learn what to say about your company. And also a big thing I think about that is, yeah, the catalysts. So what is the street kind of thinking? Like what's Wall Street thinking, and why is your thought process different? And then what would change the street's opinion to kind of revalue that company to where you think its fair value is. I think that's pretty important. And then as for like being at the competition, if you get invited out there, it's a tremendous opportunity. So just kind of relax. It's definitely really tense. I was super scared going in there. I mean, I saw other reports, I saw their slideshows. I was super scared. So just, yeah, I mean, it's definitely, it definitely gets you going, but just relax and have fun with it. Connect with everybody that's there. But yeah, again, for the stock pitch, just, you need a story behind why it's being mispriced right now, and then why it, will go to where you're saying. Yeah.
Perfect, thanks, Zach. Claire.
Hi, yeah, I think adding on to what Zach and what Isaac said, really take advantage of the resources you have online, like just reading newspapers like the Wall Street Journal, or just Googling things on like Yahoo Finance or whatever it is you have to do, and taking really like advantage of all the resources you have online. There's so much out there that can be utilized, and I think it's just really important to leverage those resources. I think in terms of the presentation itself. I think it's really important to be confident in your delivery and to kind of practice your presentation before, or maybe present in front of your parents and have them ask you questions before. I think that's a great way to prepare for the Q&A. And I think just being confident and knowing what you're going to say as you switch the sides is just really important, because everyone wants to appear confident. It makes you look better, it makes you feel better. But I also think for people who might not have much of a background in like finance or like economics going into the competition, like I definitely didn't have a lot of like background in that. I didn't really take classes in economics, for example. I think like take this as an opportunity to learn more about finance and about like stock pitches in general, and definitely leverage those YouTube videos you can find and just resources that also YIS provides. I think those definitely really helped me a lot when I didn't really know what I was doing at the beginning.
Perfect. Thanks, Claire. Shane, do you have anything to share?
Yeah, I mean, most of what I was going to say has already been covered, but I think some of the like main key points I would really recommend is fall in love with your company and really do a lot of research. And I would recommend reading a lot of old, whether that's earnings call, listening to old earnings calls, reading old 10Qs, 10Ks to really understand. Part of that is what did management say back then and how are things going now? And that can help you anticipate if management is saying X thing will happen in the future. It helps you really understand what's the likelihood that what they say actually becomes true. I think another key thing, especially with the thesis, is you really want to be differentiated. You don't want to cover what you can easily find on the first page of Google looking at the company. You really want to spend time, understand why the stock is trading where it is, and if it is undervalued, understand why it's undervalued in the first place. A lot of these companies are multi-billion-dollar market caps. They have tons of Wall Street sell-side analysts. They're owned on the buy side, but why are people missing? What are they missing about the stock? What are they missing about the story? And what are, like what Zach was saying, what are the catalysts that allow that stock to hit its true intrinsic value? I think are the really key parts. And being able to present that in a very concise and well-packaged way. I think Warren Buffett has a good quote about something like the thesis. A good thesis should be able to be said within a few sentences. And I think that's really a key part of the whole presentation.
Great. Let's go ahead and open it up to questions from students. So if you would like, if you can just raise your hand and we'll call on you. Yashvasan,
Yeah,
you have
hi.
your hand up.
So approximately how much like teams compete in this competition?
I'm sorry, Yashvasan, who was your question for?
Just like anybody in like who has that knowledge in general of the competition.
Wondering
Probably-
how many teams compete in total.
Yeah.
So last year, I believe we were over 500 teams. And I think we're expecting more this year.
Your voice was kind of breaking. You said 100 teams?
No, over 500.
Oh, 500. All right.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Rowan,
Hi
you
all,
have your
thanks
hand
for your
up.
time this evening. I had a quick question for the judges and maybe Laura in particular, based on your comment about investor relations. I was actually able to get IR on the phone for the company I'm pitching. I was kind of inspired by what YIS was saying about, trying to reach out. And I was wondering if you have kind of a best practices in terms of how to integrate that. Maybe some of the conversations or insights. I know you don't want to take management at face value necessarily, but, any insights into that would be great.
It's an amazing question because it just really depends on the IR team. You might not get a lot of information at all out of the call. But it just depends. Like I tend to focus more, especially because at quarters they don't want to discuss around what's going on for the quarter. So I tend to use that time frame more to like call out their competitive advantage, their long-term vision, Yeah, I mean, it's a great question. It's harder today. I mean, I after hearing everyone's comments on searching and presentation, at the post-COVID world or during COVID, investor relations sites became a lot better. So, I mean, you can get a lot of information and you have to be really prepared when you go into a call with management because there's just so much information available today. So I don't envy you guys. I actually think your job's a lot harder to call out something unique and different just because of the amount of information today. But I mean, it really depends on what you're trying to get. You can use them for your model too. You don't have to use them just for like, what is your competitive advantage? What is your long-term growth story? I mean, one of the things I think a lot of analysts do is use not use manage, but discuss with management, as you mentioned, their long-term helping you build your model. What do you think your margins can be over the long run and why? What do you think your growth rate will be? Why? How are you differentiated? What are your drivers? Those are really important in culling out, like Rose said, your financial model and having a differentiated financial model, or asking one of the very different investor I knew, one of my original mentors, would actually get on the phone and say, tell me what's wrong with this sell side model. They'd actually find like a Goldman model or whoever analyst out there, and they would just say, tell me what's wrong with this model. Where would you agree? Where would you disagree? So anyway, those are, I'm sure Roha and Lee and everyone have a lot of different pointers on that, but those are some examples, but you can really use it for like differentiating your model too.
I'll add to that with respect to contacting investor relations. We've seen people in the past that lived within proximity of the company they're pitching, and they've asked if they could come visit. And the IR is like, yeah, come on down. I'll give you lunch. I'll show you around. And they were able to glean insights and really talk about operations. And Trade Desk was one of them. The girls were right there. They went and toured it, and they really made a connection, and it just brought the whole experience to life. So if you live within spitting distance, you might consider asking them if you can come by and just meet with them for 20 minutes and be respectful of their time and explain what you're doing.
Great, thanks, Lee. Aya, you have your hand up.
Oh, yes. So I was wondering, so how many slides would you recommend for like the presentation?
Yeah, so all of that information, make sure you look at the submission guidelines. It's 10 slides.
10 slides? Okay. Thank you.
Maceo.
Yes, good evening. Thank you to take me for the question. So my first question is for you. It's about the YouTube video. I know you maybe mentioned it, but can you give more detail on how we have to submit the video, how many minutes, like those details?
Yeah, so all of those details, again, are on the website. Please go to yis.org, programs stock pitch report. The video is no longer than 10 minutes long, and it's a YouTube video link, and it's basically you presenting your PowerPoint presentation along with your stock pitch.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome. Elaine.
Good evening. So I have a few things I want to confirm because I'm actually new to YIS this year. So I do want to know for the registration fee, because as an international student going through the website, we register a My YIS portal, and then we kind of registered a location at the calendar. But after we register, we kind of click participate there. We kind of didn't let us to the place that we should be paying the fees. So yes.
So if you're an international student, there's no fee for the stock pitch competition. So there is no registration fee for international students.
Okay.
The US events are $25.
Okay, thank you for that information. And I also want to confirm another thing, is that so because since I have a kind of teammate right behind me, so have you registered like as a team at any place, like Google
Yeah,
Form?
so not formally on the website, but what you do is you register and then your teammate also registers. But the crucial part is you have to list both of your names on the stock pitch report, presentation, and YouTube video. So all of those things need to happen. That's how we know you're a team.
Okay, awesome. Thank you so much.
You're very welcome. Alec.
Yeah, so I have a question. What will happen if two students have the same company that they do? Does only one of them get to advance to the top 100 or both of them if they're both presentations are really good?
Great question. So we've had probably, I don't know, 20 student teams pitch Tesla. It doesn't matter what stock you pitch. What matters is how high you score on the stock pitch report, presentation, and YouTube video. So we basically go by score, and that's a number score, not exactly what stock you pitch. Does that make sense?
Yes, that makes sense. Thank you.
Perfect. Jaden.
What's the maximum amount of people that can be on the team?
2. It's either individual or a team of no more than 2.
Oh, okay.
Rowan.
Yeah, I had a second question. This one for Ro. You were speaking about getting a sense of consensus expectations, and I was wondering how you approach that if you have a company that has, few to zero sell-side analysts. How do you get a sense as to what's baked into the stock price?
Great question, and I love those picks that are kind of like not your plain vanilla S&P 500 things, something international, a small cap, whatever. In that case, I would just say, here's what I think the market might misunderstand about this, underestimate, so it might be a real big shortage in some raw material that that this mine, maybe it's a South African mine or something like that, because of palladium or something like that. What is the market underestimating generally, and why do you have a different view? Two things I'll just share kind of related to that question that I'm gonna just tell you that I'm gonna be all over in this next competition. Because the world changes all the time, and I think these will be common mistakes that people will make, including myself. One is it's very common when you're looking at the equity value and the stock price, you subtract out all the debt. But this time it's going to be very different because some of these highly indebted companies that have a lot of leverage are borrowing historically at 3%, 2%, 5%, whatever, and they're going to have to roll that over at 6, 7%. Be aware of that. That's a real big negative, and probably the market's efficient, but sometimes the debt guys and the equity guys they don't communicate very well. Another thing is obviously our president here in the US is starting maybe some global trade wars. You're going to see some operating income that historically has been good or whatever it is, but might be a lot better now, might be a lot worse because you're not going to be able to sell that market, or maybe you're protected now, you're going to be selling at a lot higher price. So that's something that if you, particularly if you have a kind of global company or something that competes globally, so those are things that are going to, the efficient market says that those things will probably be accounted for in the stock price, but not always, and especially with those second tier companies that are arguably less efficiently priced.
Thanks, Ro. Stephen. Let's see. Steven says, unable to unmute right now, but here's his questions. Who judges the preliminary round, and how many people will review each submission? Will my video be watched by multiple professionals? Yes, yes, and yes. So we have over 60 judges from all different investment firms who are going to be watching the videos. They're usually in a team of 2, so you'll have multiple people watching your submission. For international competitors, is there a certain number of qualifying slots allocated? No, we don't have a certain number of slots. It's a numbers and it's a score based system. So basically you're either in the top 100, it doesn't matter where you're from, or you're not. All the submissions are pitted against each other. Yes. Let's see. Yeah, that's all his questions. And let's see who else. Anyone else have their hand up? Anyone else have any other questions for either myself, Lee, Ro, Laura, Maria? Anything about the YIS event? or anything stock pitch submission related?
Christine, I've got a question.
Yeah.
What are the rules with respect to filming the YouTube video? Is it one continuous non-edit, or are edits permitted? So, because
So
obviously,
edits are permitted. It doesn't do anything to their score though. So basically, don't waste your time. Just kind of film it, run it through one time. We'd rather have you just film directly through and not take the time to have to edit anything.
thank you.
No longer than 10 minutes. Yash Vason.
Yeah, so my question is for any of the judges that are listening. So, how do you assess whether a stock is priced efficiently in the market, and what strategies can you use to exploit like potential mispricings?
Christine, you want me to take that one or who?
Yeah, Ro, perfect.
Yeah. So I'm just going to go back to what I said. I think, one of the things you do is the price of the stock is there on Bloomberg or whatever. And you have to say, well, here's what I really think it's worth. By definition, a stock is worth the present value of future cash flows. It's just definitional. You can't get away from that. And we have all kinds of proxies for saying, yeah, but the present value of future gas flows is so hard. You change that discount rate just a little bit or the debt scenario. So we use other things like price to book or price earnings. And those I call the relative valuations. And that's where you say, well, this is a certain industry in a certain country, and this stock is kind of doing the same thing, and it's traded below those guys. So with a DCF, you want to really emphasize what is the cash flows, number one, what is the discount rate you're going to use? And that's hard. It's really hard. I've seen 30-year-old analysts argue 30-year experienced analysts argue vehemently about a discount rate. And I don't want to go into it here, but it should reflect the risk that those cash flows might not materialize the way you think they are, as well as the time value of money. And then with relative valuation, you say, well, this company's trading at a PE of 10, and everybody else in the industry is trading at 12 to 15. It looks cheap, but is that because this company's a lot more risky, or is it because it's not going to grow as fast? And if you can't say yes to either of those, then it probably is cheaper on a relative basis and probably is a good value. And so therefore your target price would be more in line with what would be implied if it was trading like those other companies, or what would be implied if you used like a 6% discount rate and 3% growth for your DCF. We could talk all day about that. That's the art of fundamental equity analysis. And that's as much as studying the company. I think the purpose of because companies come and go, I would study that part of it, how to value a company and the materials that we've provided, and talk to us, call me or anybody else, and we'll help you through that. But that's the key question right there, right?
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks, Ro. Adia.
Hi. So how do you decide what stock to pick? 'Cause like what type of company, or should it be small or big? Like how would you decide that?
Great question. Any of the judges want to take that?
This is Lee. I'll share two thoughts on this. So I'm an attorney, but I like to invest, and I've been involved with YIS for a long time. If I've heard of the stock, I'm already going to have an opinion about it. And so I would suggest you pick a company that there's a likelihood that maybe I haven't heard of. And Rose said it a minute ago, some of the most interesting picks are something in South America that we haven't heard of. And then you become the expert educating us about the stock. And on the fly, the judges then have to apply what we know and think about valuations and your arguments. And it really helps you stand out. One year, Mercado Libre did really good. They're e-commerce in South America. And I hadn't heard much about them. Some of the other judges had heard about them and were excited because it was kind of obscure. And they got up there and they owned the stage presenting why this was a great buy. If I hear another Nvidia or another Tesla, I'm gonna throw my computer out the window. I've done this 10 years and I've heard that pitch so many times. I could give the pitch and I don't even know if I want to pitch it, right? So it's one of those things that if you haven't heard of it, if it's a little more obscure, it's awesome if it's something you're interested in. And one year, Ro will remember this. Early on, I think it was year 2 or 3, we had a girl that was into drones, and her dad were really into drones before they really blew up and became super popular. She pitched a company and thought it would be a great acquisition target, offered a lot of good justifications to talk to investment relations. And sure enough, within 2 years of her pitch, it was taken it was acquired by another company. It was an incredible story. She won the whole thing. I think Ro, you offered her an internship on the spot, and she said, "Just kidding, I'm going to be an engineer." But that was an incredible pitch, and it was something she was passionate about. So finding something that you're genuinely curious about is going to lead to you really staying engaged in your own pitch. And if it's a little more obscure, I think that's to your benefit. And but that being said, if you have a really good reason why you think Ford is the one, just understand that we all know a lot about Ford and we're older than you. So we've seen and heard all of it on Ford. So that would be my caution. I hope that's helpful. I invite anyone else to jump in.
Yeah, I'm gonna just add, okay, NVIDIA, Costco, Ford, they're all fine, but if it's so much harder to say something different that we haven't heard, and that's the key. If you can say something different on Ford, what the market is missing, why the new product is that's coming out next year is going to really just knock the cover off the ball, I'm all for it. But otherwise, it will be easier to say that this less well-known company is different and is more unique, is probably more inefficiently traded. The other thing I would say is a lot of the good ideas we've seen are something that the person like the drone girl, she knew a lot about that. She was a scientist, she was an engineer, and sometimes, the biotech, maybe their mom or dad works at Biogen or Amgen, excuse me, and so having that kind of insight and passion and interest helps a lot. It's really hard just to, kind of throw a dart at the Wall Street Journal and say two things. One, I'm interested in that company, and two, that's what I'm going to cover. You don't want to do that. Think about, hey, what sector I'm interested in, what skills that I bring to the table, that unique insights. Am I a Gen Z buyer myself, and do I know a lot of people that would buy this? Or can I talk to a bunch of rest home people like Ro and Lee and talk about that industry of senior citizen care? Finding that unique perspective, what's different, what's not known, is critical.
Yeah,
Great,
okay,
thanks,
thank you.
Brian.
What are the expectations on the AI related topics?
What are the expectations? Oh, you mean the how did you address AI? So basically the AI question is, how does your company address AI? It's basically written right out, the question's written right out on the website, what you have to answer. It's basically, how does your company use AI in their business?
And I would add, is AI a threat or an opportunity for your company, right? Could be to reduce cost. It could be a real threat, like, why do we need all of these guys anymore when AI can do it?
All right, thank you.
Sarah, you.
Hi. So I looked through the template for the written report and it asked for investor relations contact person and email address. What information do I have to find for that?
Yeah, so basically it is what it is. You need the contact name and their email address if you can find it publicly available on the internet.
Okay, got it. Thank you so much.
Prince. Prince, your hand's up. Do you have a question?
He's on mute.
You're muted, Prince. All right, moving on. Chris.
Hi, yeah, I had a question about how to make the video. Can we do it on like a Zoom call with the slides presented and be talking about it, or should we do it in person like it'll be done in the Global Summit?
Yeah, it's up to you. We have a ton of entries that are done on Zoom, especially if it's a partner, you and a partner on Zoom presenting together. And then we also have a ton of students who stand in front of someone who's recording them doing their pitch. So it's entirely up to you.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
Elaine.
Yeah, so regarding about the investment relation contact, do we just find the contact, for example, on those quarter slides? Is that the idea? Am I understanding correctly?
No, your contact would be the person at the company that you're pitching the stock.
Oh.
So
Okay.
their job is investor relations, and they're usually kind of either listed on the website under, you know, staff, or however that's kind of, you can usually Google who the investor relations person is at your company. And then if you can get, you know, contact information from them, email, phone number, whatever it is, you just stick that in there.
Oh, so okay, this will be a question I actually really want to ask, is that in this case, does it mean we have to contact them? It's kind of hard to imagine, that's why.
You don't contact them, you just list their contact information for us. We will contact them if needed, if we need to contact them because your pitch was fantastic and we want to share it with them, or if you place in the top 100, or it's basically for our purposes.
Okay, awesome. Now I understand it. Thank you.
You're welcome. Anish.
Hi, I first wanted to say thank you so much for taking the time to like give advice tonight. My question was kind of regarding forecasting. Like when we're forecasting like growth or loss proposals in the future, what kind of duration should we cover for judges? Like should it be like a year, 2 years? And like does it depend for the type of stock?
Yeah, I'm gonna give this one to Laura.
I would do at least 5. Most people who you're presenting to are the judges. A lot of them have worked in investments themselves. They prefer a long-term perspective. But I mean, ultimately, it depends on your pitch too. I mean, I like if the company you're pitching is something you want to take a long-term view on, you want to buy and hold it, then I would definitely do a long-term valuation, why the company can grow for a long period of time. Again, I was never a short-term investor, but maybe you are. There are all kinds of styles of investing. I was long-term, long only. I think most of us, probably Lee, we get excited if someone pitches I agree with everything Lee and Rose said. The more differentiated the company is, the better. I'll give you guys an example. Last year, there would be like 12 or 14 stock pitches per group. And the first Tesla pitch was fine. And I would take notes on every student, you know, but by the time I got to the third one in the 13 pitches, or NVIDIA was the other one. So really try to find something, a business you love. Google, like if you like sports, Google, I love sports, what's a public company? And then the pitch is really up to you on how long-term to look. Again, I was long-term, so I looked at least 5 years. If you look at the business and you say, wow, I don't like this company, there's bad things coming. I think Ro had a really good point on, I think there's probably a lot of companies out there that have debt issues they're going to have to deal with over the next year. Find one of those and pitch a short. I mean, we don't get very many shorts at all, and you can do that on the short term, not long term. So it really depends on the company, what you're choosing, what your time horizon is as an investor. And I know you might not know that yet. If it's any consolation, it took me 8 to 10 years to figure out what kind of investor I was. And then in addition, I will also say on the valuation thing, what Rose said was so critical. I think my first book in the industry, you know, in the very beginning, you read a lot of books, and mine was like Valuation for Dummies. So you guys are way ahead of me. But there are books like that out there you can look at too, like very short valuation books. And I would take a look at that and just say, which one of these styles do I like? What works for me?
Yeah,
Great,
thank you.
thanks,
And a
Laura.
quick follow-up question, if that's fine. Like, would it be okay if you could have like almost like two valuation targets? Like you can give a 5-year and you can give like a 2-year. Just because like the shorter it is, like the more accurate your kind of cash flows would be.
I would steer against that. You're going to find it's possible, but it's without going into a lot of science, it's more theoretical. And let's say you have a 5-year target, you have to make a decision whether you buy that right now. So you got to discount that 5-year target back in today's money, time value of money and risk. So I totally get what you're saying, and they have something called 2-stage and 3-stage DCFs. That's the AP stuff. Don't worry about that right now. I would say, what do you think it is worth right now in today's terms? One thing I find sometimes, and this, I wouldn't penalize somebody for this because it's really the AP class, but they use, next year's earnings, and they discount it back to, like, say, December 20th, 2020. Well, let me see a better example. They would discount it back to the end of this year. And other people would, in the same company say this is what it's worth right now. To me, it's better to say, what is it worth right now, even discounted back that extra 9 months. That's so AP stuff. I wouldn't worry about it too much, but I wouldn't get too sophisticated with two different price targets. I would get sophisticated and say, here's what one valuation methodology, say relative valuation based on price per book for a bank or something, because you can't, or PE. And then I would complement that with DCF. A lot of people do that to say, well, this PE, and you'd have to read up on this, I won't go over here, but this PE would imply a growth rate that's 25% a year for the next 5 years if you did DCF. And that's astronomical. That's too high. So I don't like the stock. Fair enough?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much.
So this question is for any of the judges. It's about the investor relations. So if we can manage to maybe get them on the phone or whatever, should we add about it in our presentation?
Lee, did you want to take this one?
Yeah, usually that comes up in the question and answer part. When you get to the final 100, that's where people will drop a nugget like that. The judge will ask a question and they'll say, well, when I was visiting with the investor relations folks, they told me X and I think that's wise, or I disagreed, or whatever. Usually it'll come up in Q&A. If you want to weave it into your verbal, you can. I don't know that you would put it into your written, but it won't hurt. But don't make the video a giant regurgitation of what the investor relations folks told you. Just weave it in where appropriate to show that you did your homework, and you'll get some points for that. It'll be impressive, but it really shines when you make the final 100 and you're talking and you're answering questions. That's where it really comes together.
All right, last but not least, Prince.
Okay, my question is, how much emphasis should we place on fundamental analysis versus technical analysis?
I'm going to let Ro take this one because he's the perfect person for this one. Ro?
The other judges might disagree, but I don't do technical analysis generally. I'm more like Laura. I'm a long-term fundamental investor. That's the way Buffett is. Most people scoff at technical analysis. I realize it's done out there. And so I don't penalize somebody for doing technical analysis, but I can't really reward it because you'll get into the CFA and you'll look at things like the weak form of the efficient market theory, which says that all momentum and price movements and charts is already incorporated in the stock price, because you can run computer programs to analyze head and shoulder patterns and momentum patterns all day long. And so that's my personal bias. The other judges might respectfully or might disagree, but I just want to focus on the fundamental analysis. Christina, I
Okay,
hope you're
thank
okay with
you.
that. I hope you're
Yeah,
okay with
no,
that.
it's perfectly fine. All right,
Thank
and
you.
we're gonna, Prince, let's see, you were the last one. So we're going to go ahead and end it there. And I just want to say good luck on your stock pitch submissions. Make sure you watch the guidelines. Make sure you read through all of the guidelines on the website. Again, they're at yis.org, programs, stock pitch report. All of the guidelines can be found there. Make sure you review them prior to your submission. All of the submissions go to stock pitch 2025 at yis.org by April 2nd, midnight of April 2nd in your own time zone. All right. Thank you for being here. Thank you to our judges, Lee, Laura, Ro. Thank you, Maria. Thank you, Diana, for being here. And I'll see you next time.